Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Bakwas, Zunaqua, whatever you wish to call it, this legendary being has captured the imaginations of countless people, adventurers, investigators. Even the odd scientist can't help escape its captivating wonder. It's most commonly known as a massive, hairy, bipedal ape-like creature, reaching heights of over 10 feet and weighing over 600 pounds. If you're lucky enough to stumble upon the enormous 17-inch tracks of this beast, you'll be hard-pressed not to begin searching for potentially one of the most elusive creatures to ever walk this planet. Seeing one of these Sasquatch beings in the flesh would be a life-changing experience. It would challenge your beliefs, what you've been taught your whole life. It would be the ultimate adventure, the ultimate odyssey.
There's a little less understanding now, I think. It's interesting, even in the Aboriginal community where I'm working right now, I find that, a lot of the younger people are very skeptical that it's a real existing mammal, even though the elders are saying, oh no, we've seen it, we've heard it, we've seen the signs, we've had stones thrown at us, so we know. But I think you could make a case for some kind of, certainly there is this intimidation. I mean, there's even the odd report of chest beating, which is pretty interesting. When people describe them, they're saying, oh my goodness, this was no dog, this was no wolf, this was amazing, and we have some recordings already, good ones. But it's so hard to attract the relevant scientists to this evidence because you mentioned the name Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and so I don't want to get caught out in a hoax, and so there's just this unwillingness for scientists to examine the evidence, which is really unfortunate.
It's been over 4 years since I began this strange journey. If someone would have asked me back then where I would see myself in 4 years, I never would have guessed it would be searching for Bigfoot on a regular basis. And it seems crazy when I think about it. I get asked all the time, do you really believe in Bigfoot? Why do you keep doing this? You're never going to find anything. And I say, why did any explorer ever put his life and career on the line to venture into the unknown? It's some strange and powerful curiosity that pushes me back into the wilderness. 200 years ago, did people think we would ever be walking on the moon? Probably not. And all I can say is that it's been an extremely eye-opening journey, full of adventure and self-discovery. And I don't see myself giving up anytime soon. So here I am again, back in the woods on the hunt for the legendary Sasquatch.
Like, this is crazy. It's mid-September. It won't be too much longer before I won't even be able to come down here, because the road is going to be so bad, and they don't maintain the road out here in the winter, so there's not really any way you can get down here unless you're in a side-by-side, or even that's pushing it. You need an Argo with tracks, and then you stand a chance. It's good. I like the fresh blanket of snow on the ground because it's easy to see tracks, see if any other animals came through here, and it's easier to find my way back.
I'm out at the well-known Alberta habituation site, made famous by multiple other Bigfoot researchers. This mission is to retrieve a trail camera which I had left out a couple months ago. Myself and 2 other amateur researchers left out food items such as apples, grapes, bananas, and garlic, as well as a Buddha statue to try and lure in a potentially curious Bigfoot. Of course, this method can easily draw in other hungry critters, but it's thought to be one of the best ways to habituate a group of Sasquatch. Prior to setting up this camera trap, I was able to capture some strange activity a few hundred yards away from this spot. These clips were recorded right next to a well-known tree structure and depict some sort of creature tampering with the camera. I've received many theories as to what it could be. Bear? Raccoon? Squirrel? Bigfoot possibly? This location is well known for its Bigfoot activity, but I wasn't buying into it just yet.
Here it is, right here.
I reviewed some of the footage on location with the camera's tiny LCD screen, and it didn't take long to get my answers. A marten. All those months of waiting just to find out it was a marten. The Sasquatch remains elusive, and it's disconcerting for such a prestigious area. Back to the vehicle. Now it's the moment of truth. Thank God. Started. Now let's get the heck out of here. The seasons are changing rapidly. It was no more than 3 weeks ago that I was out on Vancouver Island, exploring the lush, almost jungle-like temperate rainforests. It's easy to imagine a creature like the Sasquatch thriving in a place like this, and it's known as Ape Island for a reason. There are countless stories of terrifying face-to-face encounters with Sasquatch beings, stories of hikers having large rocks thrown at them from the thick vegetation, travelers having their vehicles shaken violently in the middle of the night while they're sleeping inside, and of course the endless tales that are prevalent in the island's First Nations culture. Vast, dense forests and a seemingly never-ending food supply would make this location the perfect habitat for a reclusive beast. And I'm not the only one to think so. One of my lifelong heroes, the late John Bindernagel, also shared this perspective.
There's a really strong correlation with water, creeks, rivers, wetlands, and especially ocean shore. The coast of BC, and this is what distresses me here in British Columbia, that my professional biologist colleagues will not take it seriously when here in British Columbia we probably have the best Sasquatch habitat on the planet. Well, maybe Southeast Alaska, BC, and Washington, but and down into Oregon and out Northern California and stuff. But I mean, really good here on the coast. And of course, there's the tradition of the Sasquatch in Aboriginal culture, as Zunaqua, the wild woman of the woods, which so frequently is dismissed as supernatural or mythical in the sense of exclusively mythical, rather than saying, okay, it occurs in myth. Maybe there's a kernel of truth to that myth that warrants some investigation. And then there's lots of what I call historical accounts, and they go back into the 1800s, which have languished, I mean, so the early historical accounts, okay, they were described as a monster, and people didn't know what to do. And sure, cataloging is a problem, it seems to be a primate, which includes both apes and humans. And I used to be, I would say, insistent on it being an upright great ape, but I thought that was a really good hypothesis. But That seems to repel a lot of investigators who say, oh, no, this is no ape, this is definitely human. Well, rather than get bogged down in that distinction at this point, I like to just say, well, it's a primate, which includes everything, or even an anthropoid, you know, that sort of thing, apes and humans, something like that.
So what do I think the Sasquatch is? There's so many possibilities, so many theories. The most mainstream theory is that it's some kind of undiscovered and extremely reclusive primate. And when I say primate, it's important not to forget that primate includes human beings too. Many enthusiasts get caught up in the argument that the Sasquatch is more human than primate. The term primate includes us people. The real question is, how animalistic is it? Is it more like an ape? Clearly based on reports, the Sasquatch has some sort of advanced intelligence that sets it apart from its other forest neighbors. It's thought that they may even have their own language. And there are audio recordings to potentially back this up. The Sasquatch could very well be more than just an undiscovered ape, and may very well be more closely related to human beings. The theories go much farther than that. Many Bigfoot researchers and enthusiasts follow the idea that the Sasquatch is of extraterrestrial origins, potentially being dropped off here to observe us, or maybe it's a result of some strange genetic experiment conducted by the ETs between humans and apes. Sounds pretty wild, right? Well, how about the idea that the Sasquatch are interdimensional beings that can appear on a whim and vanish into thin air? That could communicate with a chosen few using telepathy, or more commonly known in the Bigfoot field, mind speak. Some even claim to know these creatures on a first-name basis, where they came from, why they are here. They claim that they are light beings or light entities that reside in the trees themselves. Does Sasquatch have the ability to move between dimensions? It would explain cases where only 2 or 3 tracks were found. Or even the incident I experienced back in 2015, where 2 sets of bizarre handprints were left on the car window and not a single track was found nearby. I myself am a believer in alien life, but I try to keep it separate from the Bigfoot phenomenon. I have to go with the most likely theory and explanation, and that is that the Sasquatch are flesh and blood primates. You know, until I see concrete evidence to prove otherwise with my own eyes. I have to see it cloak, I have to hear the mind speak. Sasquatch are thought to construct bizarre tree structures in extremely remote areas, and I've witnessed these structures on multiple occasions. While they are certainly strange and don't seem to make sense as to how or why a person would make them, there hasn't ever been an eyewitness report of a Sasquatch actually being seen making one, or at least to my knowledge. The Alberta Habituation Site is home to numerous well-known structures, and they have certainly contributed to the growing popularity of the location, making it difficult to distinguish what is legitimate. Any new structures most likely would be made by human visitors, hoaxers trying to get their kicks. To me, the Habituation Site seems compromised in a way. I have to move to a new location.
I hate just randomly like trekking off in like a random direction. But at least with the snow on the ground, I can see, you know, my footsteps. I can find my way back easily enough. But still, just like walking off into the woods and you don't know, like, well, one, you're in a really remote location, and two, you don't know where you're really going. It's pitch black out other than my camera light. It makes it really hard to see what's in front of me with this light shining in my face. And you know, anything can be out there. Mostly worried about, you know, wolves. I'm sure there's still bears out. I mean, it's only September. Even though it looks like November, December. But you can see, like, some of these trees still have green leaves on them. And every now and then, like just now, you'll hear a weird noise. Sounds like something hitting the ground or something snapping. Like it's most likely just snow falling on the ground, like a clump of snow, or snow pushing like a branch and breaking it. And I'm trying to keep it together, but man, it is hard. Got one thing on my mind, and that is the Sasquatch. And sometimes in these situations, I hope it's not real, because, you know, it's hard to stay out in these spots by yourself when you're alone. And I get spooked very easily. Sounds like coyotes. But a big branch just broke over here, and that's what first startled me. It could very easily be one of these branches breaking from snow load. Because I've seen it happen before, like the snow's so heavy. And it can really weigh down these branches. But, jeez, that startled me. I was not expecting that.
So what we have with this kind of strange situation that people keep discovering the Sasquatch for himself or herself when they see one, but of course they're observing a mammal which is not supposed to exist. It hasn't been missed, it's been ignored, it's been pushed aside, it's been dismissed. Other times I'd say, no, it's been discovered, we've got track evidence, film evidence, you know, lots of eyewitness reports and drawings, and the vocalizations I'm starting to study now.
vocalizations were captured close to where I am now, a place called Ram Falls, which is a very popular campground in the summer. It has a long history of intense Bigfoot encounters. In some instances, the creatures will walk right up to the tent area. This audio clip was recorded by a credible couple who were the only ones in the area at the time. The mix of loud wails and guttural growls are very unsettling and similar to many other pieces of Bigfoot audio evidence. So if we look at the spectrogram here of the audio, we can see these white blotches, and these are the actual vocalizations all throughout, and they kind of reside between 600 and 1000 hertz. So let's just play through on this spectrum. Footprints are the holy grail of Bigfoot trace evidence. Tracks have been found which measure over 18 inches in length and include fine details such as dermal ridges and hair impressions. Of course, they are easily hoaxed as well, but when you find impressions randomly in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to imagine the odds of someone leaving fakes in the same spot. Are these tracks proof of an enormous bipedal primate inhabiting our forests? I've definitely found very interesting tracks myself which resemble the typical Sasquatch foot, but there's always a chance of misidentification. Crazy, like sometimes you come under these big spruce trees and it's like it just makes the perfect shelter. It's kind of cool. They're so big. Would be really cool to, like, you know, come across any kind of tree structures. And tree structures are, you know, said to be a telltale sign that there's Sasquatch in the area. Now, there's many theories as to what creates these tree structures. And, you know, I find that a lot of these tree structures kind of, the locations they're in coincide with, you know, a lot of ancient First Nations territory. And,
You know, there's lots of Sasquatch stories and legends and First Nations lore. It's just very interesting and very, very weird. It would be very unsettling, though, to find like a full-on tree structure in this random location. There's lots of tree breaks here, but, you know, I don't really buy into the tree break thing, and I've said that before. Just because look at the snow load. There's broken trees all over the place. Like, look at this thing. I'm just, you know, as far as evidence goes and trace evidence, the tree breaks, just like the simple snaps, I don't pay too much attention to that. Now, John Bindernagel used to talk about like tree and branch twisting, where they're twisted in like a very odd way. Now that's weird. That takes an actual physical being to, you know, grab onto it and twist it. It's not just, you know, a snap. I keep seeing my own shadow out of the corner of my eye, and it scares the crap out of me. A lot of people swear, though, that tree breaks are another common sign of Sasquatch. They'll break trees, they'll snap, you know, saplings. And they think they could be like markers, you know, to mark their territory. It could be, you know, them letting us know, like, don't go past these. You know, this is our territory. We don't want you here. I don't know. I don't know. Pack up my lights and go back to the vehicle and hang out there because it is too spooky out here. Camera set. You know, hopefully I can pick up something other than a marten.
One of the biggest questions I have is the Sasquatch dangerous? Is it malevolent? What would it do to me if I ran into it or invaded its territory in some negative way? I've always wondered what my chances are of becoming the next person to go missing in the woods. There have been hundreds and hundreds of reports of people mysteriously vanishing in the North American wilderness. Is Bigfoot responsible? Many believe the Sasquatch to be benevolent and kind-spirited, but I'll always be cautious and expect the opposite. Primates in general can be extremely dangerous. Chimpanzees will attack and cannibalize their own kind, and the sheer size and power of these animals is nothing to be underestimated. A human being wouldn't stand a chance. Maybe Sasquatch should be worried about us. I've heard multiple stories of frightened hunters shooting and killing one. Yet no body has ever turned up publicly. In Manitoba in 1941, a Sasquatch was apparently shot. A First Nations man shared his account. It was 58 years ago, and I was only 17 years old. It was the first week in November. This was when we hunted the most, because by then the meat would keep. I like to hunt moose, and I like moose meat. Eventually, I shot over 100 big game animals, which also included lots of deer, some elk, and one woodland caribou. Only 4 or 5 bears. I didn't like bears and I didn't hunt them. But the bigger half was moose. Maybe about 60, sometimes 2 or 3 in one day for the neighbors and ourselves. I started hunting with a .22 caliber rifle when I was 13 or 14 years old. When this happened, it was the first time I was hunting with my dad's rifle, a lever-action Winchester. That day I was hunting northwest of Basket Lake. There's a creek coming in there and it crosses the road. It's a 4.5 to 5 mile hike into the area. It's good moose country and good for deer too. It was a cloudy, hazy day with ice crystals in the air, and there was a little northwest breeze, not much. Judging from the tracks, there were 3 or 4 moose out there feeding on willow. Moose tracks crisscross the area, as they do in a place like that where they are feeding. You can't track them in there because there are so many tracks. When I spotted a moose in the willows, I fired, but I didn't kill it. There was blood, but not much. I followed the blood trail for about 3/4 of an hour in heavy brush. Then I saw a patch of dark fur in the willows, standing still and facing away from me. I said, "That's my moose." I aimed right where its rear end should be. That's a good shot because the bullet usually penetrates right into the chest cavity if it's a straightaway shot. I fired and it went down. When I got up to it, what do you think I saw? It was a Sasquatch. I had hit it in the back between the shoulder blades. It was dead and lying on its side. It had long, silky hair, especially on the head and shoulders. Its hair was dark brown with reddish overtones. It had a slanted forehead, a face like an ape, and a body like a human. It must have come from the side. Maybe it smelled the blood. It had its back to me when I shot. If I had seen its face, I would have known it wasn't a moose, and I wouldn't have shot it. It must have been bending over because I didn't see a head. One arm was under its body, but the other was on top, sticking out and lying flat. It had long, heavy arms. The upper arms were huge. With my foot, I turned over the hand I could see. It had a long, broad palm, and the fingers were only 1/3 to 1/2 of the length of the palm. Mine are about the same length as my palm. They were flat and stubby. Its fingernails were thick and heavily rounded. The foot was about 15 or 16 inches long. The 5 toes were pretty straight. It must have weighed about 400 or 500 pounds. It was taller than me, about 7 or 8 feet tall. It was big in the chest. A man's chest is sort of flat in front to back, but this was rounded. It looked like a very powerful animal. That guy could lift anything. It was just like Ro's drawing, but it was a male. It had no breasts. I didn't look for its privates. The longest hair was 8 to 10 inches long. This was on the head and the shoulders. It was fine, silky hair like muskox hair. It didn't look like an old one. I didn't see any gray hair. Even a moose will have gray hair when it's old. I couldn't see its ears. They were covered with hair. It had very little forehead and it slanted back from the eyes. The eyes had heavy eyebrow ridges. The mouth was wide, going up the cheeks quite a bit further than a human's mouth does, and the jaw jutted out in front of the nose. But its chin was rounded, not sharp like a human's. It looked like the one in the Patterson film. That film is right on, but no breasts. It had a face like an ape and a body like a human, and it wasn't a moose. I wished it was. If I had been hunting legally, it would have been different, but it was out of season and I had no license anyway. I was kind of scared, as money was scarce. I had a hard time buying a box of shells. I just wanted to get the hell out of there as fast as I could. But this is just my word. I have no evidence. Do what you want with my story, but I don't want my name used and I don't want anyone interviewing me. I can't tell them any more than I told you. It was a much different world then than it is now. They might not understand. That place near Basket Lake? I hunted again thereafter, many times. But the location of where I shot the Sasquatch is impossible to find now. There are no natural landmarks, and it's been burnt over 2 or 3 times or more. And they introduced beaver into that country. Beaver had died out by the time the settlers came. The landscape has totally changed, and Basket Lake is not accessible now, except in a very dry year. There was jack pine there, but mainly poplar now. It's not all the same. Just like that story, things here are constantly changing. The vegetation is withering away, the animals are on the move. Just because a Sasquatch has been seen in one location, doesn't mean it'll be seen there again. Should I be actively searching high and low for these creatures? Or should I remain in one place and carefully begin habituating them, bringing them to me?
been a lot of reports coming in, over the past little while of strange happenings. Here in Alberta, we've had, reports coming in of wood knocks multiple times in like the same general area. There's been tracks that I've been told about that have been found recently with strides like 7 to 8 feet apart. And that just sounds insane. That almost sounds impossible to me. But I guess if you have a creature that's, nearly 10 feet tall, and if it's moving really fast, that could definitely be real. The fall months, the fall months seem to be like a transitional phase for them. I kind of imagine them as like a nomadic being where, they'll be roaming around in the summer months, and then as fall rolls around, they'll all gather potentially at like a specific location for the winter, whether it be a cave or, just a very safe location that they have tucked away in the mountains where they will stay for the entire winter. Occasionally they'll have to leave for food, but maybe they go out and before the snow falls they go out and try and gather as much food as possible. I have no idea. And these are all just theories, but I kind of imagine them in my mind as like a nomadic being, and then once winter rolls around they stay in one location. And I've been told similar things, and there's lots of other researchers who have similar theories as to that, but it's all hearsay and it's all just guessing, and I feel like it kind of makes me sound crazy sometimes coming up with all these theories about something that might not be real. And that chance is always there that it might not be a real creature, and when you're doing research you have to be willing to accept that, and that's just the way it is with anything. At least I know if it's not real, just experiencing this outside it's definitely worth it, getting out of the city and into the forest.
So where do I go from here? Where do I search next? Will it be long before I come face to face with this fascinating creature? I certainly hope that one day I can witness a real Sasquatch, or better yet capture solid proof of their existence. One thing's for sure, it'll be a very long and interesting winter.